My name is Callahan. I have been an MCT since 1999. I have been a SharePoint MVP. I have published books. I have presented at Ignite and Tech Ed and Windows Connections and numerous other industry conferences. I have been training and teaching all throughout. I started out in, of course, where everyone else started out in the late 90s, which was Windows Server. And as I was going along, I kind of fell into or got interested in the SharePoint server, particularly SharePoint services, because they were part of the Windows services for Windows Server. And then it broke off to be part of the SharePoint team itself and then was killed. But SharePoint Foundation and SharePoint services went to the wayside because they weren't the moneymaker that SharePoint Server was. Then everything went into the cloud, and I kind of transferred all those skills up there. And in the cloud, you're primarily a site collection administrator or a tenant administrator for a subscription setting service, which is built into SharePoint Server. And you're no longer managing farms. It's just that little guy. And most of us are using SharePoint Foundation. Very few people are using the added web applications that are used in servers. So my opinion that SharePoint services, which was the free with the server using the Windows client services, were the thing that everyone is using. I was right, because in the cloud, that's what SharePoint is now. But that is the thing I used to be doing. And then I got into Power Platform. I did write a bunch of books, or a couple of books, and I co-authored a bunch. And I authored, co-authored and designed some courseware for Microsoft official curriculum, primarily on SharePoint administration. Then I ended up falling into a couple other things like Power Platform. I'm one of the few people that actually does the Power Platform PL100 because it's such a crazy ride, that class. And I'm now moving into really looking into mesh and avatars and immersive spaces. If you guys went to Microsoft Build or saw any of the presentations that were made available online, mesh along with AI were big announcements at Build. So that gives you an idea of how long I've been in MCT, through thick and thin, from the very beginning all the way up to now, and what I've been doing and where I've been going. I am not a Microsoft employee. I am independent. I'm not full-time employed by anyone. I work with a lot of learning partners and a lot of brokers around the world, not just in the United States. So my perspective on what's going on in terms of our tools and how to use them is grounded in experience through change after change after change. I am not a regional lead. I am just like everybody else. Speaking of that, one of the reasons why I do what I'm doing for all of my MCT peeps, particularly the newer ones and the ones that have been out in the wild or at training centers and not gotten to use or been given any guidance on how to use all of these tools that are available to us. The reason I'm doing it is because I am somebody who feels that we're all equal in this. There's no MCTs greater than any other MCTs. A new MCT is an MCT. You earned it. That's why you're here. And so I want to teach from the position of kind of modeling the behavior of an experienced MCT, except that this is a user group kind of environment. So it's casual. It's just me sharing with my friends who are MCTs about our tools. So I'm not going to be doing slides, and particularly not polished ones. If I have slides, there's just going to be a list to help keep us all together and do a summary. It's not going to be polished. I would welcome interaction. I will be looking at the chat as I'm teaching. I also am trying not to use any tools that everybody else doesn't have. In other words, if I'm not going to use Zoom it. Instead, I'm going to Zoom the screen. I am going to be trying to just use what's out of the box for the sake of everyone else. So I'm not going to be doing Menti-Mint polls because most of you don't have Menti-Mint polls. Most of these meetups that I have been watching from historically were really effective sessions teaching you about all the tools that are out there, particularly with Tiago. He's got some really great stuff, good relationships with some of these vendors. So you may want to check those out. But what I'm doing is base. However, in this session, what I'm doing is using what was a very effective Blur extension to blur private information that now is a little wonky. So you'll see me adjusting to that as I go through these pages for a reason. So at any rate, I've told you about me and what we plan to do here. Let me tell you a little bit about what I am presenting on today. Most of you should know. You probably didn't just drop in to go, hey, spend an hour with me. You probably are interested in the topic and know what it is. But it is, I am going to be deep diving into, as well I can in this period of time, deep diving into our profiles, because not only did our transcript get moved into the Learn profiles, there's also a couple of other things that can be useful to your students as well as to you. And I want to just give you a quick rundown of what these things are. While, as I said over in the LinkedIn group, I'm going to be trying to protect private data. So to that effect, I'm just going to drop right into the screen that shows you my certifications list for my profile, for my Learn profile. Then I'll drop back to MCT Central, show you how I got here, the easiest way to go. There are also a couple of easy ways. Now, what my blur tool was supposed to do is remember how I set up the blur tool so that it just works on every single page. And it did that until this afternoon. So one of the reasons why I'm coming directly into the profile first, then getting out of it and moving on, is so that you'll see how it's supposed to work and then see what I have to do to adjust every other time. So if everybody is comfortable and fine, I am going to now move on to sharing my screen. I now am going to share a pretty large screen with a high resolution. Some of you are on laptops. I have this zoomed out to 125%. Please let me know in the comments if you cannot see the information clearly. We can see that I am on the profile. This is my Learn profile. Now, I am assuming that all of you have already associated your MCT account with your Learn profile and that you know what a Learn profile is. If not, we can speak after the session to give you a little bit extra guidance, but I'm assuming you all know what's going on. Ermine did raise her hand and then remove that, so I'm not sure how she's doing, but I'm assuming you all know how to do this. So you can see that my blur works perfectly fine. And so I'm going to go to MCT Central. I am logged in. We all can go to MCT Central because we're all MCTs. So I decided to start this process by logging into MCT Central, which we can all do. In the past, up until our profiles were moved onto Learn relatively recently, when you went to your dashboard was specifically for MCTs and specifically had information for us concerning our certifications, etc. And it also had a means to look at our transcript and create a transcript code and a password for privacy. Now, when you go to your dashboard, it goes directly to your Learn profile. Bless you, whoever has your mic open. That would be Maury. And Maury just closed his mic. That's all good. And you can see it took a second for it to it's all blurry. And now it's the correct part is blurred. But you'll notice these little icons underneath the blurs. They are not supposed to be there. No. My extension called Zero Blur was supposed to get rid of those or not actually trigger them. But because of something happening today, every page I go to is going to have those little icons until I turn off edit mode. So I do not recommend Zero Blur for blurring private information. It was going to be a win. It was going to look great, guys. It was going to look great until today. So I have now gotten into my profile via the MCT dashboard. If I were to go to any other Learn page at learn.microsoft.com and log into my profile, I could go to my profile underneath my profile icon, and it would take me basically to the same place I am now. Okay. Another thing I'm doing here, I don't think I should have to mention it, but just in case, I do not have dark mode. I have light mode on because that is sort of the default. When anybody gets a machine, it's going to be in light mode. So I'm not going to assume that everybody does dark mode. I'm just sticking in this one. So if your environment, if you're following along and you go to MCT Central and then your dashboard, you might have dark mode on. Just be prepared. So here is my certifications. Notice that my trainer cert and my Power Platform cert that I renewed are both at the top. You might have others, you might have more. This is basically what I'm focusing right now. I'm not doing as much certification training as I may have in my early years. Right now I'm doing primarily doing custom. So profile, starting with activities. You can see that it's going to show you your previous activities all the way through. Now, I don't find the activities page that helpful except for one thing. If I was in the middle of doing a learning path, if I was looking at or even editing a module, looking at a module, and I've been asked to look for anything in it that doesn't quite work, I might have that module up. I might have had it up and then I want to go back to it. For some reason, I don't have a bookmark or it's a pain in the butt to find. I can go into my activities. It likely will be there. What you've been doing on the Learn page, particularly in terms of collections, is going to show up on here. If I want to look at training, just not going to bother editing that. These little buttons aren't supposed to be there. You know why they are though. So here under training, you can see the modules I was working on. That also, this primarily is where you would see modules that you might be editing or working on other than learning here as well. So I deleted a couple of things that I was working on and they're no longer showing in here from my previous presentation of this. But you can see that I explored some Power BI, yada, yada. Everything you looked at is in here. Other people don't need to see that. You can work through all kinds of modules at your leisure. This is your convenient way of going to look at where you were in training for other things. Think of it as a bookmark page. You can also see what challenges you previously did. So that can be useful or maybe not. Or you can go straight to the challenges page, which of course is blurry for a second. Same thing as what you would find under training. Oh, that blurring is really annoying. These are okay. Certifications. You know what your certifications are. Trainer, etc. We've been here. Red marks. Now we get to the stuff that these four below, the Q&A, the achievements, the collections, and transcript, that's where the meat is. Activities and training and challenges, that's for you to see what you've been doing on the Learn site. It's the rest of these that might be useful. And you could actually use these to suggest for students if you need to explain to them why they have a profile at all. You know what? Maybe I should put my microphone on. There we go. You might be able to hear me better now. And you might not be able to hear the fan quite so easily. My apologies. I had my microphone over there instead over here. It's been a day.
Better.
Yeah, thank you, Maury. Feel free to tell me to put my mic on from now on if I ever forget to put it on. At least you can hear me at all. So, you know, that's a bonus. So anyway, getting to the Q&A. I deleted everything out of my Q&A so that I could work with that with you. What are the following your favorite threads, tags, users? What do they mean by that? What is Q&A? It's the tech community forums. That's it. That's it. You can't throw your favorite threads in here just 'cause. All of this is about It's in the Learn platform, for the Learn platform, all about the Learn platform. Never leave the Learn platform. So if you wanted to do your favorite threads, tags, and users, I'm going to hit Q&A. And here we are with the blur again. But what do you need help with today? You can use your profile to keep track of things you want to remember. You know, that keep track of things you want to remember that you went to the forum for, that you were looking for. And so information about the forums at all, getting started, how to write a question. You can also see interesting supported products. And it is really interesting what they've chosen to show as supported products when that is not necessarily all of the products. So Microsoft advertising is a tech community supported product. So I'm going to try to do a little search on here, and I think it might search more than, yeah, Microsoft Mesh is not, which just announced, a bunch of mesh related things were announced at the most recent build. So I just did mesh, did a search, communication patterns for Microsoft Mesh, about mesh, mesh not working, mesh avatars. Let's try this one. And the reason why I'm doing this is also, this isn't something that I've ever done before. I haven't come in here. Most people haven't come in here. So this is going to be one of those forums that don't get a lot of use, that aren't a default. And so I'm going to say I'd like to follow this question. I'm trying to set up my avatar and I can't see it. By the way, that was in January when mesh avatars were still in private beta. So that's why this person couldn't get in. And now if I go to my Q&A and I refresh, it should show that I'm following that question. It's taking a moment. It's taking a lot of time. Okay, going back to mesh avatars, or mesh about avatars, and I'm going to search. Somebody give me a topic to search in Q&A. Anybody? What do you want me to look for? I can even choose you as a user, put you on my Q&A page. Oh, Ramin is Copilot. They both said Copilot. Okay, so I'm searching for another, to make sure I spell it right, another topic that was really a headliner at Build. So here's Microsoft 365 Copilot, Microsoft Q&A. And so I am going to give this one a click. And it should bring me into the forum question about Copilot. Here it is. Q&A, questions. And dear Microsoft, I'm writing to inquire. This is a technical forum for Microsoft products. Oh, this person is asking as I guess, as an affiliate. Well, that's not a useful question to us, is it? Let me get the bar out of the way. So what are the use cases for Copilot for my M365 tenants, and how can we use it in our tenant? Excellent question. So Copilot was in private preview on April 5th. And oh, this is typical. So this person wanted to know about use cases and do we need any licenses and just generally all things Copilot. And the Microsoft employee that responded said, "Do you need any more help with this question?" I don't see anybody answering that question. So we're going to do a follow on this, see if anybody does eventually ever answer that question. Oh, and meanwhile, it went back to Q&A threads and it finally pulled in the mesh avatar question. Let's see if it pulls in the second question I asked and how long that takes. Okay, it did. So as you can see, I'm following the Q&A threads. I might even be able to follow Elise French, see if she ever has asked any other questions. And then if I go back to Q&A and I refresh, maybe they'll show up here. So that's what the Q&A is for. I'm sure people have looked at it and thought, I'll get to it whenever I have time, but what is this about? And now you can stalk people using following users, and you can follow Q&A threads. So now I'm going to move on to achievements. You have heard that Microsoft Learn is ending their partnership with Credly concerning our badges. And so achievements and badges are going to be handled by Microsoft. And I'm really curious to see how that works. The badges that we had on Credly, we're not going to be getting any new ones. The Credly badge activity is going to, like getting new ones and getting verified and things, are going to end as of the end of June. And you're going to be able to go to Credly to see what you have gotten up to this point, but it will no longer flip over if you renew a certification. That will not show, or if you renew something from Learn, it will not show as renewed for verification at Credly. I'm not sure what Microsoft is going to be doing. Microsoft Learn, worldwide learning, is going to be doing in terms of those badges. Weren't Learn partners didn't they have to do badges? So I'm not sure what we're going to be doing with those in the future. They want you to use your learning profile for that. But regardless of what's happening on Credly, you can see what achievements you have on Learn. These are not your certifications through View. These are not your exam certs. These are badges and achievements and trophies on Learn. I'll admit, Joel. And that is an important distinction. If one of your learners comes in here looking at their achievements and they're not seeing their exam achievements, those achievements are not under achievements, they're under certifications. It's a different deal. It can also show up in your transcript. Well, the information for it can show up in your transcript. Ermine Credly was one place to point to verify all your certifications. Thank you, Ermine. It was, except for the transcript. It could be that Microsoft Learn wants you to focus more on transcripts than anything else. I don't know. But regardless, if you're under achievements, it shows things you have achieved in terms of the learning paths and things that you have achieved according to other badges. And I'll show you that in a second. So you can see under learning paths that I created a model-driven app and I created a Canvas app, whoop, whoop, a while ago, because I teach that course. And I do have a separate login with a separate profile for, just an Outlook.com account that I do a lot of just random learning and looking at profiles and things of that nature with that account. So some of the things that I do don't show up on this profile, they show up on a different profile. And if you are doing that, like this is your professional MCT profile, and then you have another profile where you are playing with Babylon JS, which is a developer thing, when in fact you are a IT pro instructor. And so you just keeping the two separate. It's perfectly fine. I've never seen a problem with having a different profile for doing other things. However, remember that you have more than one profile, because if you go into the achievements, I swear I achieved this. It may not have been on this one. Your MCT profile is important specifically about your transcript, which I'll get to in a minute. And I like to keep it clean so that the modules and the Q&A and the collections are specific to my MCT job, so that everything in there I can just look at for what I've been doing in terms of work. So my learning path trophies that I got that could be great for learners, particularly new ones that need that dopamine hit of achieving something and marking the occasion. But the modules and courses is where the more interesting achievements are, because they just make a lot of them. And they are actually called badge, 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 badge. So maybe this is where your Credly badges are going to end up. I don't know, but these are badges and we can print them out. It's crazy. At any rate, I'm not going to bother printing them. It takes a second and all that craziness, but you have badges under achievements and it's under modules and courses and more. I love that, and more. And these are not Credly badges, but these are little achievements. Like we were video game players and we were Zoomers needing our little achievements. That's what these are. And if you've wondered why students might talk about, well, I got this, I got that, and you haven't been under this additional category under achievements, you may not have noticed all these little things. You may have dozens you might not have seen. Now, achievements are nice. Oh, and I also want to mention that I have set my profile private. That's under my profile settings that you can set. We had messed with those previously. They do surface a lot of private information that I don't want to surface as a woman on the internet. I just don't. I don't do my ID numbers and my emails and my addresses and things like that. But in my settings, I have it set for my profile not to be public. And because of that, my display name and learn achievements are hidden from my public profile, and shared achievements will not be viewable. So if you have shared achievements, and I've never really had a shared achievement, but if you may want to use your learn profile like a resume more than just sharing your transcript. And if you're proud of it, then something happened with my screen. I think I have a few less. Yeah, Sheldon left. If you do want to use your profile like a resume, you might want to make it public. However, making your profile public doesn't necessarily make your transcript public. Okay? These are two different things. I want to be clear on that. The transcript came over from when we had MCT transcripts to give our learning partners the understanding of what we can teach, what we cannot, what our certifications are. And so that's been rolled in here, and that is different. And we'll get to that in just a second. And I am doing well. Collections in terms of time. In other words, I'm not running over it like I normally do. So proud of that. So what are collections? I'm going to ask real quick. You can raise your hands or you can say in the chat. Anybody using collections, either for themselves personally or for their students, for their classes? Anybody using collections? Not really seeing any responses. Ricardo, I think, might be because he's responding via text. Collections are essentially custom learning paths. You know that learning paths are made of modules. The learning paths that we are supposed to use, he uses the official Microsoft learning collections, which makes sense. Our learning paths are made out of separate modules. But if you have some favorite modules that you want students to use that were not necessarily part of the course learning path, you can create a collection that you recommend students use. However, your profile needs to be public for them to be able to see the collection. We discovered that when I was messing around with them at one of my previous sessions. So if I were to take a look at my favorites or my Callahan's profile session or my extras, it's going to blur a little bit. There are no items in this collection. So I created extras during my session for 28. And so so that one has nothing in it. Let me see if I have anything that really has. This blurring is driving me crazy. That has 6 items. Why didn't I look at the items before I tried to open it? I make mistakes, so you don't have to. I'm going to take a look at favorites. I haven't looked at that since July of last year. And so I was obviously looking at AZ 104. And so I created a learning path of these modules in these different learning paths. This is just separate modules. So how would I do that? If I go back to my main page, this blurring, you can create a new collection by going down to the bottom and plus sign new collection. I did that already when I created extras. So let's just say that we created extras. I'm going to add some items. And now you can see that you can browse all the learning paths and pull individual modules out. You can also search for something specific, primarily by title, but you can search for something specific to make that, pull up that one module and put it in your collection. You can also filter by the usuals, the different products, or the different roles, as in the certification roles. Levels, I don't always have the best experience just looking for levels. Subject, and you could even type in the subject, and types, the full path or just a module. Well, one of the things I noticed was, did you know that there were learning paths for MCTs? There are Microsoft Certified Trainer learning paths. Or maybe there aren't anymore? Have they removed them? No, they have not. So I'm no longer doing Microsoft Certified Trainer. I'm just doing Trainer. So I guess they took Certified Trainer out of the names, and take a look at this, my fellow Microsoft Certified Trainers. There are no modules that say Microsoft Certified Trainer anymore. Their educator trainer, which is generally academic, K through 12, or the internal Microsoft Technical Trainer. Learn best practices from Microsoft Technical Trainers. Well, okay, they changed the title, but these are Microsoft Technical Trainers that are doing higher education learning paths. You can see that one is, there is a Learn Best Practices for Microsoft Technical Trainers Beginner, and one is Advanced. And if I go to the module for Learn Best Practices from Microsoft Technical Trainers, what I want to see is what they had earlier, they do, which is basically our old Train the Trainer videos. We used to have Train the Trainer videos. If I go back to let's go back over here and hit MCT Central. You can see that we had Train the Trainer videos for Microsoft Learn Trainer Readiness, where they had some readiness demo support. And they also, not as much stuff on here as I remember over at MCT Central, but they had Train the Trainer for business applications. And these were the dynamics training back when dynamics first really got started, and they really wanted us on board with that. They called them biz apps, and they had a lot of onboarding from MCTs to learn how to teach as an MCT. Look at this, Train the Trainer series for PL 900, MB 700, etc. The old course numbers, which we used to get on Coursera Marketplace, but now that Coursera Marketplace is closing, they're going to be available in a couple other places. One of them is XtremeLabs, for us to be able to bundle the labs and the courseware to continue to offer that to students. But you can see the trainer here on MCT, the MCT Central, but this is also now Train the Trainer learning best practices from Microsoft technical trainers for Prepare to Teach AZ204, Prepare to Teach AI 900, Prepare to Teach SC 300. Okay. Introduction, accessibility features, objective domains, prepare for the exam, et cetera, et cetera. All of this is here for the intro. But what gets me is getting more specific about developing solutions for Microsoft Azure. And it gives you modules and information on how to prepare for it. Notice it's educators, but educators need to know how to do these things as well. So I'm going to go back to, hopefully, my collections. And just remind you that you can add a collection that shows that you can collect anything you want. And I frankly am going to create a collection with these TTTs in it because they might be useful. Now, I haven't gone through them. Maybe they're lame, but I thought it was interesting that somebody invested at learning paths to show trainers, academic and Microsoft technical trainers internally, but at least they have this information out there. I know that those of you who were in my last session when I did profiles in a longer format, we took a look at these, but is there anyone amongst this group that has not or did not realize that there was Train the Trainer material out there for them on Learn and at the MCT Central? Is this any new information for the newer people here? Ramazan is kindly typing. Thank you for letting me know that at least one person today learned something. Awesome. That's kind of the point. I mean, preferably more than one person, but there we go. We got the collections. Collections for me are useful for studying. I also will create a collection of pain point modules that are not up to snuff for what I think that module is supposed to have in order for the students to get anything near the objective domains they need, or it's a module that has some sort of complication in it that I need to do a little bit more work on. My problem is I no longer have skill pipes with my notes in them. I don't have anywhere to have the courseware with notes in it, so that I like to have my collections have this information in it for me, so that I'm using my collections as a prep tool for my courses. That's kind of useful for me. There are add-ons you can have in your browser for notes for particular pages you have and things of that nature, and third-party products. So that's kind of what I use collections for. And if you have your profile set to public, you can share your collections with others. Another thing I can do with my other profile that isn't tied to my MCT, does not have my ID number on it, and does not have my MCT email on it, is I can use that other profile, make it public, and then share these collections out to the students as well. Finally, transcript. So this is my MCT transcript. You can see that I have everything blurred out. That was the whole point. Oh, and notice that this is blurred out, but it doesn't have the weird icons underneath it. Is it working now? Well, welcome to the transcript. I'm going to have you guys just do a quick raise of hands or whatever you like to do. Is anybody not have their transcript associated with their profile? Is anybody having a problem with their transcript? I'm not seeing any response whatsoever, and that is good. Good. So for those of you following along, your transcript is going to be different than mine. And I want to just show you really quickly in case you may not know or may have forgotten. For one thing, the transcript area of the screen, I'm waving my hand pointing at something that clearly you can't see me doing. Sorry, that area, this area, is actually built on the fly. It's like a little frame. So this, if you're going to be doing blurring, is actually kind of a separate page. Bilal wants to join. They've got a couple of minutes. So if you're following along, though, one of the problems I have with transcripts is the fact that you cannot remove the module stuff down at the bottom. I don't know why it's there. It artificially lengthens it. I'm not sure of any learning partner or anyone who cares about what modules I've ever looked at. So if you're on your transcript, I'm just going to scroll all the way down and you can see that there's modules that I've looked at. And you can hit show more and it can just show forever. And that kind of, I don't know why the modules are there. I'm not thrilled. But the modules are kind of my biggest frustrated takeaway with the transcripts. Can anybody give me a good use case for my clients, for training brokers or for learning partners to need to know what modules I saw and how long they are, the module duration? Anybody? Because I don't see any reason why anybody needs to know what modules I've read. It's kind of like me having a list of every uh, lesson, every section I ever taught in any Microsoft official curriculum ever. I don't know why it's there. At any rate, transcript. It normally has your legal name, your MCT ID, and your contact email on there, as well as your professional name. For those of us who have a professional name that is different than your birth name for any number of reasons, such as being an immigrant and wanting to have a more Americanized name for their professional name, uh, for somebody who changed their maiden name, but they don't feel like changing it back, uh, something to that effect. They don't want their legal name, which is required to get certifications through View. You don't want that on there. You want your professional name, your chosen name. Well, now you can. Your username can be your username. And so that's why CA Callahan is up there, or my nickname, Callahan. So that is a difference that we didn't used to have in transcripts that you can have now. And that is a nod towards inclusivity and diversity. Joel just asked, I really don't think learning partners need that information. It should be personal to the trainer. Thank you, Joel. Agree with you. Thank you for interacting. So this was kind of important, your information. Under normal circumstances, people don't see your transcript page like I'm showing it to everybody now. And so the fact that they have your legal name and your MCID listed, you're supposed to be seeing your own transcript, not what other people see. You can control the transcript that is shared or printed for your clients by going to your transcript settings. So my share links, so if I'm going to share using my link, show legal name, MCID, and contact email, you can choose I've cleared those out. So it's not going to show those when I share my transcript out. Or I could have it show any one of those I choose. And so what I do is I show MCID if I'm going to be sharing that to a client. You can also, if you're going to print, and oftentimes I print the transcript to PDF, and that way I can cut the modules off the bottom and just have the meat of it there. If you want to print, you can also choose how it shows up, and I'll show you what that looks like. So that's under transcript settings. For those of you who may not remember, this is how you get your share link, by hitting the share link button, create a link, and you can create your link. And I have, of course, here's my link. I can copy it. I can also remove link. Why? If for any reason your transcript link has gone out into the wild and you did not want it to, you can remove that link so that person who uses it will not be able to use it anymore. But when you remove that link, create a new one so that you can share the new link from that point forward. Okay, it just kind of makes sense. But here's your link. Now I'm going to show you print. Let's hope this works. So I'm going to print a PDF. And the blur software, the blur extension actually blurs it even in print, so you don't see my MCID. But you can see that I did choose for printing to surface my MCID. If I were to print this for the client, it wouldn't be blurred out if I actually ran the printer. This is just blurring for demonstration purposes. And you can see the username, name, and you could even have your email there, and then all the other stuff. So that concludes the transcript part, and you can see your transcript information, and it doesn't actually show the badges. So to look at your certification badges, you go back to certifications, and the weird little icons are gone from my blur. Hey, maybe Zero Blur isn't broken or got updated because of the problems with the recent update. Yay! So blurring is working now. Thank you very much. But you can see that I have my icons here, but I can't really grab my badges. Now, I want to show you something interesting for the novices who may not have been here. Is if I view the certification details on my Power Platform App Maker, I can print my certificate, I can share my information, and it shows it's active. If I needed to renew, it would show I needed to renew. I'm just going to see, is it just going to take to the exam page? Yeah. So if I am not in a state where I'm 6 months before the expiration of an exam, all that information about renewing your exam doesn't show up when you are looking at your certifications. But if you have an exam that is going to need to be renewed, and they open up the renewal process for you 6 months before your expiration date, it will actually give you a bunch of interesting stuff. Access to practice test, access to the learning paths that you need to review specifically for the exam. I really like that page, and I'd like to teach it, but I don't have anything that is coming up for renewal. But it's under these certifications that you will be able to quickly and easily get to that renewal page to see that collection of learning path modules, etc., for your certification. Now you can see that you have your badge here, but the badge isn't a separate object that you can download and then use in resumes and on LinkedIn and post everywhere and have in your emails. That was on Credly. So I'm wondering what they're going to do with Learn to pull that out as a separate object so that we can manipulate it. I don't know. But this has been my looky-loo at, oh, well, that's interesting. So the buttons are back. This is my looky-loo at my profile, my Learn profile for my MCT account. Plus a little quick jaunt to the collections for Microsoft trainers on Microsoft certification paths and official curriculum. So I think that is about it as far as content. We have about 5 minutes. Does anybody have any questions concerning collections, transcripts, achievements, the forums, or anything else like that that you might want to ask now? You know, this is a safe space. No question is stupid. And so if you want to take a look, everybody.
Yeah, please.
This is, Maury, these profiles, though, are things that most of us have been using regularly, so don't be surprised if everybody's
Sure.
like, yeah, you didn't give me anything new. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
Is there anything for any of you that you saw that you didn't know? Like for me, one of my takeaways last time was, wait, there are learning paths for trainers in any way. There's actually help on Microsoft Learn for how to teach. That's awesome.